Welcome to our virtual presentation on A-Level Geography at Harris Beckenham. As a department, we're passionate about teaching geography. We believe that exploring our place in the world, our values and responsibilities to other people and the environment, it helps us inspire us to become global citizens. We study the OCR A-Level Geography specification. We chose this because it's a great continuity with our GCSE studies, but also it provides a really modern course. To access our course, you'll need a minimum of 7 grade 5s in full GCSE subjects with a grade 6 in geography. In terms of what we look at, we do one physical geography paper, we do one human geography paper, we do what's called a synoptic paper where we look at issues that cover a range of physical and human geography ideas, and then we do one independent investigation. Starting with the physical geography, we mostly look at the systems that keep life on Earth viable, things like the carbon cycle, things like the water cycle. We also look at coastal landscapes because they dominate the physical geography of the UK. The second, the human geography paper, we look at fascinating 21st century topics like globalization and migration. We look at power and sovereignty. That third topic there, geographical debates, we look at some of the most relevant issues facing the world today, particularly, for example, disease dilemmas. We look at global pandemics, we look at how different countries cope with those and manage those and why. The final aspect, the independent investigation, we do that because that is a coursework that allows you to develop fieldwork skills, research skills that are going to be brilliant for you when you go into the world of work and when you go on to higher education. We'll look at an example of that, an NEA or an independent investigation later in this presentation. We have a great team here within the geography department, so let's meet them. So I'm Mr. Yankowski and I'm the subject leader of geography. I mostly teach the human geography components of the A-level course, and I'm particularly fascinated by the process of globalization and how it's transformed the world, and the world has become more interconnected.
My name is Miss Hammer, and I mostly teach the physical geography elements of the A-level course. And I think the really important thing about geography is it provides us sort of an invaluable lens through which to view and understand our world.
Hi there, my name is Miss Brown. I'm also one of the geography team. I also teach a lot of the physical content, which I thoroughly enjoy through my extensive travels.
To give you a flavour of what a geography lesson might be like, we're going to look at some climate change solutions. Now, climate change is one of the biggest challenges facing the world at the moment, and there is a hope that technology might be the answer to some of the challenges posed by climate change solutions. One thing that people are pointing towards is the idea of carbon sequestration. So this photo is taken at Net Zero Teesside, which is a company in northeast England, and their aim is to sequester or store carbon emissions under the sea. So NZT aims to capture CO2 produced in industrial processes only, and power plants, things like that, and transport those emissions by pipeline to offshore storage sites that might be several kilometres below the North Sea. Once it's sequestered in those areas deep beneath the sea, that carbon would no longer contribute to the greenhouse effect, and it might even be synthesised into new fuels for transportation systems in the future. Now, as an A-level geographer, you would then be expected to assess that scheme. Can you spot any weaknesses with it? For instance, the scale of it. The scale of the Earth's problems is far more significant than could be solved by projects like this, which are selective and limited to a low number of businesses. Equally, they only deal with industrial processes. It doesn't deal with things like transport emissions. So there are weaknesses with this. Another possible solution is how we approach cattle ranching or dairy farming. These are dairy cows in Ireland. They produce useful products that we use, milk, butter, can be used for ice cream and so on. But they also produce as a byproduct methane. So methane primarily comes from burping cattle due to how they digest their food. So fermenting their food in their stomachs, where their sugars are converted into simpler molecules, this produces as a byproduct methane. However, it has been found that feeding cows seaweed could help reduce methane emissions. So scientists have discovered that there's a particular type of red seaweed which grows in the tropics that can reduce methane emissions by 80% in cows when it's added as a supplement. Okay, so is this the solution? Okay, we continue doing our farming, but we just add in this particular type of supplement. Well, the challenge is that globally there's 1.5 billion cows at the moment, and there's simply just not enough of this seaweed to suppress that or to be shared around. However, you might be able to spot that there is the ability to perhaps extract the useful genetic code from the seaweed and maybe replicate it in a laboratory and produce it commercially. How about this? Would you eat one of those burgers? It looks quite tasty. That burger is made from grasshoppers. Okay, why is it made from grasshoppers? It's made from grasshoppers because grasshoppers are alternative to cattle and alternative to beef that produce less carbon emissions. So protein-rich insects are being looked at as a possibility that might give us the protein within our diet without producing harmful effect on the environment. However, some scientific research suggests that a range of insects would be needed because there's things like iron that is in beef that is not in grasshoppers, for example. At the moment, this solution is largely a novelty. People don't have it as part of their palate and their normal palate, and so it require a lot of education. It will require a lot of over cultural education in order for it to happen. And is that likely? Right, a final solution is the idea of remote working. Now, as the coronavirus pandemic has shown, many of the jobs that people do can be successfully fulfilled from home, and this could potentially offer a route to reducing emissions from transport and also from office buildings. Driving to and from work is the largest source of carbon emissions in the developed world. So this would be a transition to remote working, it can be argued, would be a significant reduction in carbon emissions. However, remote working might only be seen as an effective method of reducing emissions during the summer. Why? Because it turns out that when buildings need to be heated during the winter, it's actually much more efficient to have numerous people in one single building rather than distributed all across their own homes. Some research suggests that that might even offset the emissions from transportation and cancel them out, or to be just as bad. So these are the types of looking at within geography, possible solutions to some of the challenges that the world faces. Now, as someone who is going into the world of work, you might end up choosing to work in some of these areas. And you would want to commit to ideas that you think are viable and work, and ones that don't. So as an A-level geographer, you're therefore expected to have an opinion about these technologies, have an opinion about these solutions. And a typical example of a way in which this is assessed is through this 16-mark question: assess the effectiveness of climate change, mitigation and adaptation strategies. Okay, so what does A-level geography look like in terms of the lessons? Obviously, we do lots of the normal activities you'd expect at a GCSE, things like exam questions, things like academic reading and note-taking, kind of videos, interactive videos, discussions, debates. But in addition to that, there are some changes at A-level that we do a bit more than what we would do at GCSE. So, for instance, we do more field trips, okay, more day trips especially. This one is a residential field trip to South Downs, where we stayed for 3 nights, and we were looking at river processes, and we were looking at the carbon cycle within the local area. But equally, we might do day trips. So this was just a day trip up to Stratford, Olympic Park, looking at rebranding, looking at regeneration. Similarly, we've done local ones looking at place identity in Crystal Palace and in Kent in a village called Ainsford. Much more of a conscious effort to engage in academia. So the way we would do that is by encouraging physical attendance and virtual attendance to academic lectures. Here we are at Harris Westminster Academy enjoying a lecture from a professor at Queen Mary University about gentrification. This is a workshop which focuses on developing a particular IT skill around the mapping software, mapping widely used within geography. And this is really we go to town on this particular skill because there's so many jobs, well-paid jobs within this particular IT sector. And I'll show you how we would use this mapping software. An example of an NEA coursework that is produced using the ArcGIS software. So this is a work in progress, but as you can see, this student has compared two different areas of London, central London, and they're looking at inequality in particular. So the power of this of this software is it gives you the ability to zoom in and out and look at kind of large scale, small scale picture. Okay, so this student is using this facility to create a story map where they're kind of talking us through their research. They're talking us through the models that they're using to kind of investigate. They're talking about their sub-questions, how they're going to investigate. So this is an example of the NEA. All students would be producing one of these over the course of their studies. So they would have to define a methodology, kind of quantitative and qualitative research technique. And then this is obviously still work in progress, not quite finished, but and this student has started with their data analysis or data presentation, and then they'll be going on to analysing that. So some great ICT skills. This was a student who wasn't very confident with ICT, but is producing a quality piece of ICT research. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Hopefully you've got a good taste of what A-level geography is like at Harris Academy Beckenham. Hopefully we shall see you soon.